And as you know, that's probably the highest compliment that we can get is to, I want them to have factual information. Right. I want them to have the right information. Do you want to do business with me? Good. If you don't, that's fine too. I want you to have the right information so that you can make hopefully a better decision.
Hey, this is Matt Helton with OneTrust Home Loans, your reverse mortgage experts, and you found the Serving Senior podcast. Now, this is the podcast where we highlight those businesses and those individuals that serve seniors at a high level. And today we have another one of those amazing people. We have Mr. Ben Davis. Now, Ben is a certified senior advisor with Select Pointe, and Ben helps seniors make wise choices when it comes to a wide variety of insurance options. And we all know insurance can be confusing, and we've got the guy to translate those confusing options and decisions here today. So Ben, how are you doing?
Well, Matt, thank you. And yeah, it's crazy out there with that. And I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Sure. Well, thank you for working us in your busy schedule, Ben.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
Yeah.
Well, crazy time of year right now.
It sure is. Well, thanks for being here. I've always respected you, not because you're such a great businessman, but you always put your clients' needs before your own. And I've seen you really have great conversations with people and just do great things in the community as well as with clients. So I'm so glad to have you here so the world can see all the great things you do.
Well, thank you, Matt. That's mighty kind.
I appreciate it. A quick story about Ben. No matter what the weather is, what's going on in Brentwood around a holiday, you can find him marching up and down main streets of Brentwood, putting up flags. So if you've ever driven through Brentwood, Tennessee, and seen those amazing flags out there flying high, Ben had something to do with it. He probably put a lot of those out there himself. So that's the kind of guy he is.
Well, thanks for mentioning that, Matt. I'm actually celebrating my 25th year this year, putting flags up in Brentwood for a club, a civic organization called the Exchange Club. This particular club is called the Brentwood Hillsborough Exchange Club, and did it for an exchange club prior to that. But I'm one of those rare people. I'm a native Nashvilleian. I'm from Nashville. I've lived here most of my life. Did move away for a little bit and came back. Finished out at Overton High School. Nice. Went up to Knoxville for school for a little bit, moved back here, and then moved back here permanently back in 1982. And I've been here ever since and got into this crazy business on the senior side of things almost 25 years ago. Wow. And just found my niche. And this is where the good Lord wanted me to be, was in the senior industry. So I've been in the senior related industry now. This is my 25th year, actually my 26th year in the senior industry.
Holy cow, that's great. Now maybe give us a little backstory. What's some of your other jobs been? What did you do in the past? How'd you navigate to this world?
Well, it's interesting because I've had a plethora of careers. I started out with the Sara Lee company right out of college. And I did a variety of different things that got me to where I'm at now. But probably the two most interesting ones that I did is that I got in on the ground floor of cell phones, excuse me, when they first came to the Middle Tennessee area, and helped develop and build that. And that was a very, very fun.
Are you saying, is that the iPhone? The iPhone?
Oh, listen, this is the ones that were installed in the car.
Okay, gotcha.
The only time there was an iPhone, it was that I had a phone. iPhones weren't even thought of.
Are you a sports radio guy? George Plaster would say, "We're going to Ben on a car phone."
That's right. Yeah. And that was quite fun. And I had fun helping that system get built and selling it and the whole bit. And then the other interesting career that I had was I got in on the men's tailoring business. I became a custom clothier with the Tom James Company. Nice. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing that and was building my career. My wife was the breadwinner as we were building that career. And then she lost her job, so I had to jump back into corporate America. But all this to say that literally I have been pointed in this direction in the senior industry now for well over 25 years. Wow. And this is where I'm supposed to be. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And I'll admit to you right now and to all your viewers, I'm a Medicare geek. I'm one of these guys that when, if you'll remember the movie The Jerk, Steve Martin goes out to the mailbox and gets a phone book and jumps up and down and goes crazy saying, the phone book's here, the phone book's here. Well, I'm one of those guys that when your Medicare and You 2025 comes, I got it. And I literally that night read it from cover to cover. That's just, I enjoy it. I love helping people and this crazy thing. And it's, to me, it's a lot of fun.
That's really cool. So you are really a Medicare expert, and you have the hours of reading to prove it. So that's great.
Yeah. Well, I do on that part, and I've been doing this a long time and helped build a excuse me, a Medicare Advantage company from the ground up. And so when all that happened back in 2004, 2005, there's a lot that we had to learn and digest that uh, most people don't have a clue how much there is on the background side of it, as far as learning all the different things you have to learn for Medicare Advantage plan, which is celebrating its 20th year here in the state of Tennessee. It's been around since 1998, but it's been in Tennessee since 2005.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Ben, maybe you could share with us when a client gets introduced to you, maybe what the process would be like, what you do to try to navigate all these muddy waters and to make sure the consumer, they're not going to know as much as you, but kind of understand what they're doing, help them pick the right options. And then after that, maybe share what types of insurances you actually help translate for consumers.
That's a really good point, Matt. The interesting thing about this particular business, particularly Medicare, is that understand it is the only health insurance for people over the age of 65, unless they continue to work and have insurance at their place of work.
Okay.
The Affordable Care Act that was passed many years ago, when you get to be 65, you have to roll off of the Affordable Care Act. And again, the only insurance is Medicare. So when people start trying to figure out what Medicare is and how it works and the different parts and all that other kind of stuff, it can be very confusing. It's somewhat simplistic to me once you understand the basics of Medicare and how many parts there are to Medicare, and then what your options are. And I literally, over all these years, Matt, I've developed what I call my Medicare cheat sheet, and I call it my Medicare options. And it says that there's 4 parts to Medicare and there's 3 options in addition to Medicare. So once you put those things together and sit down and we go over this cheat sheet that I've developed, it really becomes a lot more, it becomes a lot easier to understand. And then people have this notion that the Medicare insurance is a lot different than the insurance that they're on now. And it's not, it's quite similar. It's just knowing the ins and outs of it, just like you have to know the ins and outs of the insurance if you're signing up through your place of work. Right. Or up until age 65 if you're enrolling in the Affordable Care Act program.
Got it. That's great. Maybe share more what the cheat sheet, what's it help people do and how's it work?
Well, it defines, it really breaks down, again, that there's only 4 parts to Medicare.
Okay.
And that's parts A, B, C, and D. And then there's only 3 options once you enroll in Medicare. And Matt, probably the biggest questions I get is when to enroll in Medicare. Do I have to enroll in Medicare? And those type of things. And we'll cover that here in just a little bit. But getting past that and just sitting them down and let him know that we're going to get through this and we're going to get everything figured out. And we're going to figure out what is the right right avenue for them to go on right now. And then every year at this time in the fall time, we'll check everything out, see how it's done. And that's why it's called the time coming up from October 15th to December 7th. It's called Medicare Open Enrollment. You'll also hear it called AEP for Annual Enrollment Period. And that's a time for you to, look at things and see how they've done. What are the changes that's going to happen? And they get a notification from their carrier about the plan they're on and how those changes are going to look like for the next year. And just work through it. I think the biggest thing is that people think that this Medicare stuff is hard and confusing, and it's a little bit different, but it's not a whole lot different.
Nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
And it's I would say for a lot of people, it's hard and confusing on their own, but it may not be hard and confusing when you're coming alongside of them, kind of walking them through and explaining it. I had just had a conversation with a consumer. They got a letter in the mail and they said, I thought your loan was paying my taxes and insurance. And I said, well, please it is. Let's send me a picture or scan the letter and send it to me. And the second sentence says, please update your insurance agent information. Our current information says your policy expires in 30 days. Like, they didn't read past this first line of the letter. That makes sense. So, people get these official things and get confusing. And, I figured out what it was in 10 seconds, and the guy had it on his desk for like 2 weeks, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that he did anything wrong, right? It was
Right.
just like, he was like, oh my gosh, it's an insurance letter. I think that's taken care of.
Yeah.
And
Well, I actually use your industry as one of my examples. If you go out and you start looking at a house and you hire a real estate agent and you start going looking at houses, and you've looked at multiple houses during the day, and then about the fifth or sixth house, all of a sudden you turn to your spouse and say, now, which one of those houses had that staircase that went through the backside, and which one had the color, that nice color we like, that finished out basement and all that other kind of stuff. It's the same thing with all this Medicare stuff. Unfortunately, people over the age of 65, or actually once they turn 64, they're bombarded with information.
Right.
Most of it's required, but other of it is obviously marketing. And those companies are trying to get your business. Right. And it can be very, very confusing based on all that information. And the United States Postal Service says it's like the second or third most mail that they deal with on an annual basis. That's how much is sent out. And then let's talk about the crazy television ads that has people like an infamous old quarterback for the New York Jets, and an African American skinny comedian, and a whole bunch of other celebrities that are out there telling you to call this particular number, that it's Medicare. Now, they're all Medicare eligible too. Okay, they were our age when they were famous, and they're now over the age of 65. So it can be daunting on that. And then on top of that, you have a ton of misinformation or half truths about things. And that's the thing that I try to demyth real quick. Part of that's true. Let's get the whole thing right. It's kind of like reading a section from a book, right? If you take out just a sentence or two, it's not really what that paragraph or that page or that chapter is actually telling you. You've
Right.
got to read the whole paragraph, page, or chapter to get the whole story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Well, you just tied some good parallels to our industries, because we have, instead of athletes, we have Tom Selleck. He's out there talking about reverse mortgages.
That's right.
And we have a lot of myths and half truths, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna steal my house and steal the inheritance and steal all
Right.
that. So both of us have misinformation that we have to educate people, and that's what our goal is to not sell anything, but educate. We either educate them into it or educate them out of it, but we want to make sure it's really hard to people to be educated in or out if they have the wrong information, right? So I'd hate for someone to get into one of our loans because they didn't know it may not be right for them, but I hate for them to wipe it out and make write it off with bad information. I'm sure same way. What do you do to combat some of the misinformation out there? How do you handle that?
Another great question, and that's the thing that I like to do, and I think that's one of the reasons you and I get along so well, is because we're about education and giving them information and setting that information correct. So a lot of times when they come in, and I'll refer back to that cheat sheet I talked about a minute ago, they'll give me what they've heard either through friends or neighbors or things of that nature. And then we'll sit down and we'll go over this cheat sheet. My first consultation with somebody, generally speaking, lasts about an hour, give or take. And that includes their questions and then some assigned homework that I give them to do the whole bit. And Matt, I can't think of a single time that when somebody's left here, they don't say, boy, you really made this simple. Number two, I sure learned a lot from you that there's truths out there that aren't being completed. And this is the best kind of information I could have gotten.
Awesome.
So, and as you know, that's probably the highest compliment that we can get is to, I want them to have factual information. Right. I want them to have the right information. Do you want to do business with me? Good. If you don't, that's fine too. I want you to have the right decision, right information, so that you can make hopefully a better decision. And so it's literally going through, and I revert back to that cheat sheet. That's probably been the best thing I've come up with probably in the last, I've used that, I know, for 7 or 8 years now.
Nice.
And of course, constantly tweaking it as the different things dictate things that need to be changed. But it really takes somewhat of a convoluted topic and sure makes it a lot more understandable. It's kind of like an iceberg. You know, we see 10% of the iceberg above the water, and we know that 90% is below. But if we can understand what that 10% is, then when the time comes, we'll deal with the other 90%.
That completely makes sense. And that's a very good analogy. Just ask the captain of the Titanic if it's real or not. I guess if we could ask him, that's the way it works, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
That's awesome. Well, maybe you could share some of your I'd love to hear some of your qualities, or I like to say even your superpowers that you possess that's really helped you dive into the senior market, and then why working with seniors has been a good fit and why you're so passionate about serving that niche.
Well, again, I come back to the information part of it. And Matt, I have to go back to my training as we were getting ready to introduce Medicare Advantage plans to the Nashville market. And so that goes back to 2004. Understand that in Tennessee, up until that time, your two choices was to go with regular Medicare or Medicare and a supplement plan.
Okay.
We didn't have the prescription drug plan. That didn't come along until 2006. And we didn't have full-blown Medicare Advantage plans called MAPD, Medicare Advantage Prescription Drug Plan. So that had all 4 parts of Medicare, A, B, C, and D. So it became an education process and teaching the people what Medicare was about, what it covered, what it didn't cover. I remember time and time again, people saying, hey, I can't wait till I get on Medicare because it doesn't cost me anything. I don't have to pay for anything. So question, when have we ever not paid for a federal government program? And I hear crickets, and that's the way it should be, because never. I hear people say all the time that their Part A is free. Part A is hospital coverage. No, it's not. We've been paying for Part A all of our lives. In fact, if you're still working and get a paycheck and it says Medicare tax, that Medicare tax is going to pay for Part A. Now, there's not an additional premium, but it's not free. Okay. So, but then explaining how each part of Medicare, A, B, C, and D, how it works, and then your 3 options, how those 3 options work, and which one makes more sense for the individual as we sit here today. Going to kind of look in that proverbial crystal ball to next year and kind of say, well, I've been putting off having my knee replaced. I've been putting off having shoulder surgery. I've got to do cataract surgery, and I've been waiting to get off my commercial insurance so I can get on Medicare. And I know that cataract surgery is covered under Medicare, that kind of thing. And just laying it out and trying to figure out what makes the most sense for them. So, Matt, I guess the superpower thing is that, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's the way we ought to use it. We ought to listen twice as much as we talk and figure out exactly what they know and how they know it. I don't take for granted when anybody comes in here, even if they know Medicare, if they have a relative on Medicare, or they help their mom and dad on Medicare, whatever. I take the position they've never heard of it, so I'm going to explain Medicare 101. Professional athletes every year before their sport starts goes with the basics, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, they all start with basics: how to block, how to tackle, how to catch, how to throw the ball. And that's what I do on this Medicare is I always talk about the basics first. Let's make sure we completely understand or understand those best we can. And then let's talk about all the other stuff that comes into play. And then I always recommend that if they don't want to do business with me, that they get somebody so that they've got an advocate that when something happens, that they can go to that advocate, to their agent, just like your business.
Mm-hmm.
I guess people could go and walk into a bank and get a reverse mortgage or walk somewhere and not have quote unquote representation. Well, I'd much rather have representation. So I've got somebody I can fall back on and ask the questions so that I can hopefully get the answers that I need to get.
Yep, most definitely. That's a great point. That's awesome. Yeah, I was just going to say if I was answering the question for you, you're part of a teacher and patience, right? Because you definitely love to educate. You wouldn't have created your super secret cheat sheet. And no, don't ask if he can send it to you. You got to come meet with him in his office because it's probably trademarked and patented, and it will be the end of this if not. But also to and I think it's seniors and children. They both have the propensity, and it just humans, right, to ask the same question over and over. Kids usually ask the question, "Why not?" Right? Why can't I? Why can't I? Why not? They ask never.
Right.
And the seniors ask, why? They always ask why a lot, or explain that to me again. No fault of their own, right? It's a complicated topic. You've done it thousands of times. They've only done it a few times, right? But I think patience, a lot of people wear thin in Medicare, Medicaid timeframe, especially when there's so many questions coming in because all your clients have to do it at the same time, but your patience to deal with the folks and answer that same question for the 37th time is awesome. So I'm sure your clients really, really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And it's something that I use over and over again because it's basic. It kind of clears up a lot of myths. Understand that, I used to think 65 back when I was a kid. I thought, heck, that was one foot in the grave and the other foot on the banana peel, right? Well, I passed that mark not too long ago, and it's not so old. Okay.
Yeah.
But when we get to 64 and 65, if we're not continuing to work, we're thrown into a whole new arena that we've got to go and get insurance that is completely different if we helped our mom and dad, right? I mean, this is 2024, 2025, and, we were 25, 26, 30 when our parents were this age trying to help them. And none of this was around. I mean, understand that Medicare Advantage plans have only been around since 1998, and they've only been in Tennessee since the year 2005. So it's throwing them into something they are not familiar with, and most of the time don't know where to turn.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, they do now. They got you, right?
I'd love to help them.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, Ben, while we're wrapping up here, maybe could you share maybe one or two examples of someone you met that was, maybe things weren't going great with their plan, or maybe they just didn't know where to turn. Someone introduced you to them, you walked them through the process, and then how their situation's better now.
There's been a lot of commonality when people come in here that they are pretty much set that they're going to come in here and give me the information that I need to get so that I can help them. But they've pretty much come in with the mindset that they're going to get a Medicare supplement plan. Now, a Medicare supplement plan is where you pay a monthly premium. It takes care of the 20% that Medicare doesn't pay. You pay a small deductible, and after that deductible, you don't have any other healthcare costs. Think of it like your homeowner's insurance or your car insurance. You're going to pay it every month, no matter what. If you have a claim, you're going to pay the claim, meet the deductible, and then after that, the rest of the issue should be taken care of. And then once they go through, we explain the differences in the different plans and then how Medicare Advantage plans work. Now, let me stop and say that Medicare supplement plans and Medicare Advantage plans are both good answers. They're both good answers. I wish I had this kind of questions when I was in college. I probably would have had better, higher grade score. But they're both good answers. But let's figure out which one is better. And once it's explained on how Medicare Advantage plans work and what you need to do to figure out if that plan makes sense or not for them, the number one thing that I hear after explaining it is that, well, why doesn't everybody do a Medicare Advantage plan? It's going in with a preset mind that you're going to do this. You've done enough research, if any, to think you've got a pretty good handle on how to do this and how all this works. And then once you figure out exactly what is going on, then you go, well, good. I'm glad I got that education. I'm glad I got that. I think the biggest thing that the biggest compliment I ever got was many, many years ago. I was out in Oklahoma doing a seminar, and excuse me, a gentleman came. I'm 6'3". He had to be 6'5". A big O Oklahoma cowboy with his cowboy hat on. He had to be 7 foot, and his hands were probably twice as big as my hands.
Okay.
And sat down during my seminar, and when we were through, everybody was gone except him, and he comes walking up to the front. And Matt, his hands, when I put my hand in his hand, I was just saying, please God, don't let me cry when he shook my hand. And he said, he put his hat down, and he had that Medicare and You book. And he said, Ben, I've been to countless seminars. He said, I've learned more from you in an hour than all of those seminars combined. Straightforward, to the point, simple. Let's understand this part so that we can kind of get our arms around the rest of it. And then the other thing that happens, I hear people all the time come in with a myth about Medicare Advantage plans, that with a Medicare Advantage plan, that I can't go see any doctor I want, okay? Or I can't go see my doctor because I'm on a Medicare Advantage plan. Well, Matt, I've got to be real careful how I phrase my next question, because my next question is, well, who enrolled you? You know, and if an agent enrolled them, then phooey on that agent for not doing the research and making sure that doctor was in network. If they enrolled themselves, you got to be real careful, you know, because they've done that. So it's the education part. They're both good answers. They really are. They're both good answers. Let's just figure out which one makes more sense for them at this point in time. And then for first-time enrollees, for the first time, if you've ever enrolled for the first time in Medicare, whether you're 65 or 75, okay, Medicare gives you a 12-month test drive on either option.
Okay.
And within that 12 months, if you want to change to the other one, you can do that, no questions asked.
Yes.
So it's all about education. Educate.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Ben, two things. One is, where all do you serve, and how would people get in touch with you?
Okay. I do cover the entire state of Tennessee. I'm based here in Cool Springs.
Okay.
And do, of course, a lot of work in and around the surrounding counties of Williamson County, but I do cover the entire state. For those folks that's got maybe some friends in other states, I am licensed in quite a few states, but understand this is a federal program. So I can lead them up to water and give them information that they can use to help those loved ones, or maybe in a state that I'm not licensed in. So we can do that. And then the best way to get in touch with me, if you want to go to my website, it's www.selectpointbd.com. That's select, SLECT, then point, POINTE, that's point with an E, then BD for Ben Davis, .com. Or they can reach out to me on my cell phone. That's 615-584-4946, 615-584-4946. Or they can always get in touch with me via email, and that's ben.davis@selectpoint.com. ben.davis@selectpoint, point with an E.com. But we're located here in the Cool Springs area.
Awesome. That's great. Well, Ben, anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Matt, no, I think you've done a really good job. I just come back to the fact that, this is your insurance that's going to be in place at least for a year. So don't do it on your own. Go get some help. I don't charge a fee. I've never charged a fee. It's part of the way I give back. Go get some information and then run with it from there.
Great advice. Well, Ben, keep up the great work, and thank you what you're doing for the seniors out there.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoy doing it. I'm a Medicare geek, and I enjoy doing it.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome, Ben. Well, thanks again. And thank you for watching the Serving Senior podcast, where we highlight these awesome people like Ben that serve seniors, help them not just get by, not just survive, but thrive in retirement. Thanks again. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, this is Matt Helton with OneTrust Home Loans, home of Retirement Mortgage Solutions. And we really do appreciate you checking out the Serving Seniors podcast today. Now, please go to the description down in the body of the podcast where you can subscribe to get future shows. Please click that notification button so you get notified when other shows drop. And also, if you can go to servingseniourspodcast.com, and we'd love to hear a comment about our show. We have a heart to serve seniors, and we have a heart to make sure seniors don't just survive retirement, don't just get by in retirement. We want to show seniors how to thrive in retirement. So if you know of anyone that's 55 and older that could use some extra cash flow, maybe the retirement's not going the way that they like, our retirement mortgage solutions are designed for folks, and depending on the state, they're either 55 or 62 and older, to make sure that they have that kind of retirement that they want. As long as they own a home and they're in a good equity position, there could be some solutions that they may not have thought about, or maybe they've thought of and they just didn't know how they work. That's what we do. So anyone in that age group that could use some mortgage advice, my team and I would love to be able to help them. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing you on the next show. Have a great day.